Now let's keep going, because these are the reveals. These are the big reveals now. But I'm going to take a moment here just to get some more water. I'm just going to get up for 2 seconds, guys, because I'm talking a lot. So I'm going to take a small... Nope, it looks like I'm not going to take that much of a break, because my wife is the best. Not the only pretty dryad. The only not pretty... What are you talking about? That dryad, if you're a butt man, that dryad's the best one. Yeah, that's right. If you're a butt lady, it's also the best one. We're a butt family over here. Are we butt people? I mean, am I? I'm not going to say that because that could sound bad if I said it, if I pronounced it wrong.
Butt folks? I started it.
You just started? I mean, am I a butt man? I don't know if I am. I don't know if that's actually true. All right, let's talk about these cards here. Will I cut that out? Will I cut any of that out? I don't think I will. So this was the reveal stream they recorded. They pre-recorded. So Jason was live on Saturday, by the way. That speech was from the heart and super cool. And I want that guy in charge of anything important in my life. Jason Slama, everybody, did a great job coming in on the weekend as well on Saturday, and giving a proper shout out to the dev team. Shout out to everybody who's making these cards, all the dev team, the artists, everybody working on Gwent right now, just absolutely slaying. We're getting very, very excited. And this card especially is exciting. Even if this card doesn't see any play at all, this card is one of the most exciting cards in the set, and I will tell you why. We're talking about Portal, which is a brand new 13 provision point neutral artifact that on deploy summons 2 random units from your deck at 4 provision cost. It's interesting that they're using provisions in the official wording here, in that provisions is kind of like a term that we've sort of just started using. I think it was from like one of the betas, but I believe the game uses recruit cost as the actual keyword. So either they're changing it to provisions so everything we say now is true, or this is just misprinted and this will eventually say 4 recruit cost. So again, I'll finally get through this. Deploy. Summon 2 random units with 4 provision cost from your deck on both sides of this unit. So the portal touches down and then brings out 2 units next to it. So what I say, Sandstorm counters this card a little bit. Nithril just really counters this card a lot. And Vivian Oriole really punishes this card. So this card is probably teched out. Although it's tech, there's three like very reasonable options to combat this card depending on how good this card is. The extreme in which you just play monsters to beat up the best portal deck, which I think actually might be Nilfgaard. I think it might be Nilfgaard because the Nausicaa Sergeant seems like really good and Infiltrators seem like really good. So I think those are like, I think Nilfgaard runs Portal, and maybe in an artifact deck with Combat Engineers with the Hengate's Sword, because that cares about Assimilate because you're playing units that weren't in your deck. I think that there's an awesome Nilfgaard Portal deck as things come together, for sure. So if you really hate this card, you'd have to play monsters. If you kind of hate this card, you maybe play Vivian because there's going to be other artifacts to nuke. If you just kind of hate this card, maybe you just slot in a Sandstorm. So I think that this card just has enough ranges against it to hurt it. So we don't know if this card's going to see play because, boy, it's expensive to put in your deck. But why is this card so damn awesome? Let's talk about it. This card is damn awesome because it sets a precedent that we are willing to actually tutor cards out of our deck at a threshold of provision cost or recruit cost. Which means that if this card is existing and we like this card, that means that we like that kind of tutoring. So imagine if Kira Metz, this is the example that I gave. Imagine if Kira Metz, instead of saying, because Kira Metz, if you don't know, is a 10 provision point Northern Realms card who has 2 strength, and she plays a spell from your deck. So she's really expensive for what she does. 10 provisions for a 2 strength tutor. What if Kira Metz said she had a threshold of like 7 provision points or like 6 provision points? So she could still pull Alzur's Thunder, and she could still pull like whatever other spells that I can't think of right now. Necromancy, I guess, is a spell at 7. So let's say she could still pull those cards, but she couldn't pull Renew and she couldn't pull Ragnarok. So she could be priced a lot more reasonably. That's the future I want to live in. Something that somebody said, Jamoni is saying that it's cheaper than Witchers. It's not cheaper than Witchers. If you're counting 4 and 4 on either side of this 13-point unit, it's the same price as Witchers. But as I was talking about, it really sucks that this card is, so hard countered by Nithril and so amazingly punished by Vivian. although not in the same way, because although Vivian gets 14 points, she is resettable. She is immediately removed by or any of the cards like Geralt or Leo or Spores or Peter Sargwenlev or this new Curse of Corruption. Like, Vivian countering this card still means I thinned and I got the units on the board, and I have 2 engines on the board if I'm playing the deck I want to play. Nithril is a little bit worse because Nithril kills the unit, kills the portal and the units. Nithril is like super bad, but Vivian's not so bad. I think who said that? Brazar saying Vivian Oriole is unhealthy. I don't think it's unhealthy. And this card does thin 2 cards out of the deck. So this card is just, there's so much in this card. It's pretty good for a card to be that exciting and still be that fringe. But I think this card is just super, super, super good for the game. Super awesome in general. Awesome design. Awesome art. Everything about this card is absolutely awesome. It even makes cards that were previously revealed make more sense. So good. So good. Love this card. And there's 2 new reveals since I started this podcast. Okay, so this is just the end of this podcast. All right, so this is another really cool card that may see play, but is just a cool option and just a cool card. I think a lot of the cards that are maybe slightly less likely to see play, first of all, we don't really know what's going to happen to the unicorns and which are a really popular 9 provision point card. So those cards free up space. If they are less playable or just different cards altogether, they will free up a lot of space in deck building in general because they're really good cards and they take up 18 provisions. So and we see a card like Proto-Fledder, which is a monstrous vampire that comes in at 10 provision points, 4 strength, on deploy, damage a unit by 3. But if you have Dominance, which is the new keyword to describe the monster's condition of having the highest unit on the board, if you have Dominance, then it drains the enemy by 3 instead. It doesn't seem to have a ton of synergy unless there's a card that cares about draining. It's just expensive. So I feel like when you want to do 3 damage, it's probably more so when you want to play control-y stuff, and when you want to control the board, sometimes that's important in round 1. At 3, we're talking about the 3 ping, because the 4 pings are what you really want in round 3. So when it comes to the 3 ping, I feel like maybe you want to play this early, and at 10 provision points, I don't want to play this card early. So I don't know, maybe it doesn't see play, but it might be okay. The Crimson Curse. This one has a nice paragraph on it right here, but don't worry. The titular card, this is the card Crimson Curse. This is a monsters special card, so only monsters get to do the Crimson Curse, but that's, it's Dettlaff's doing, so that makes sense. This is an 11 provision point special card that destroys an allied unit and then applies a Blood Moon row effect to both of your allied rows. It sets its duration equal to the destroyed unit's power. So if you destroy a Harpy Egg, let's say, you have 3 turns of Blood Moon plus a Harpy on board, but you don't care because it's not a vampire, so you'd probably want to do something else. The Blood Moon effect, every allied turn on turn start, boost a random vampire on this row by 2. So this is threatening potentially an ongoing 4-point a turn engine, which is really good. Really good if you can develop it. So if you think that your opponent is playing this card, you got to bleed this card, but you don't bleed it really, because this card you play early because it's probably something that's going to be very good to get you value over long rounds. So I think this card is going to actually be very good. We saw another card that cares about this card. So in a vacuum, this card is like, I don't know, because I have to destroy an ally unit, so I'm losing value. But am I if I'm destroying something like Ruin? It seems like every single monster card, that every single unit they're getting is a vampire. Have we seen a non-vampire revealed for monsters? They have all been vampires. That means that you are building a deck that probably has synergy and support, and every unit cares about this card. Even the golds, they've all been vampires. And we can, assuming if Dettlaff, we've already seen Dettlaff hire vampires. So Ruin is unplayable now with Regis Bloodlust. Ruin was already not seeing a lot of play, so I don't really know what we're worried about here. Ruin is also completely countered by a lock. You just lock it. That's also how you can counter Ruin. Lock that card. So don't worry about Ruin. Ruin will be fine if Ruin is ever fine. Karen Thier is still a card. Don't worry about it. Here is Regis Bloodlust. So we just were talking about a lot of Regis Bloodlust here. So this is a neutral card that was revealed. So in a world where Enraged Ifrit is changed, but I don't think it needs to change because this card is not the same card. But Karnax and Unicorn are changed, and we don't have a million 4-point pings in the 9 slot. This card is going to be a front runner in a highly played card. This card is, I would play this over Ifrit any day of the week just because it's cooler looking and it's just just awesome, right? This just makes Ifrit look more like starter card, right? If this looks like this is what is going to be a more interesting version of that card, you would play this. But again, you have the question, why not both? If you want to play control, why not? Why don't just play all, like, a 4-ping damage is going to be very important. That's going to be very important in general. So this card also banishes a unit that it kills. So you don't have to hit a 4-point unit and kill it to banish it. You can hit anything as long as this is the killing blow of the unit. So yeah, you can banish Spear Tip. Yeah, you can banish Ruin. Yeah, you can banish whatever. Roach for Asira Nilfgaard matchups. Like, I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to use this on if you wanted to brick Asira, I guess. But I don't know. I think this card's going to see play just because it's generally strong and Ifrit sees play. So this card is kind of like better in a lot of ways. Ifrit doesn't have reach, but I don't know if... I just don't know how many times that's going to matter where this isn't just like so much better most of the time. It's a Duchess Informant, new Nilfgaard bronze card, 5 provision point, 1 point spy. So it's a spy at 5, which is already better than any other spy they had. And it's a really cool spy because when you play the spy on deploy, you spawn and play a base copy of an enemy non-spying unit, which you are, I believe, targeting on the board. So it has to already be on the board. So your opponent plays a Harpy Egg, you play Duchess Informant, you play a Harpy Egg. Why is this cool? Well, you're playing a card that isn't in your deck, so Assimilate cares about it. Just spies in general are better now. Now, we have one engine that cares about spies only. It's a good one, because it's a 2-point ping, but it's only that one. And I think that that's okay, because Operator is a thing, Ardal is a thing. Let's not, if you give too many engines that care about spying, you create a dangerous landscape for spies, I have to say. So I think that by creating more spies and keeping just the engine, that's better. And you also don't have to decide, do I want to run more spies for my spy stuff, or do I want to run more engines? Like, it's kind of like running Deathwish and Consume. So you don't have to make that decision. You just go ahead and play this. But you also, like, think about the opportunities. In a world where there's more spies, what does that mean? Well, it means that there's more units on your opponent's side of the board. So it means that things that care about rows like Lacerate, like Death Blows, and even Experimental Remedy replays this card as well, which is the old Vicovaro Novice. But not even just that. If you're playing Reverse Boost, which is not a good archetype right now, but let's just bear with me. Let's say you played this. Let's say your opponent plays the Witchers, and you play this onto the Witcher row. Let's say you then play a Nilfgaardian Knight, and then you play Slave Hunter. So Slave Hunter will pull the lowest unit over, and you've made sure that the lowest unit is not a 1. So that's just like an idea. That could be clunky, but isn't that crazy? And if you really want to thin, all these things are at 1. Marching Orders is a tactic. I mean, there's a lot of ways. I think we really, really are going to need to explore it, because I think Nilfgaard is getting a lot of really cool stuff, and it's not immediately, like, we're looking at, we don't like Reveal, right? We don't like Reveal, and we feel like Nilfgaard is lacking strong support because the neutrals are so strong. Morvran is good because he just has a large provision cap, and, you know, the Nilfgaard cards are, like, the Witchers are just so good, you see them in every deck. I think we're used to exploring Nilfgaard in a certain way. We're used to having Reveal not be that appealing, and Spies also not having a lot of support. Now we're getting spy support, and we might be getting more reverse boosting support because you care, and more stuff that cares about what's on your opponent's side of the board, and more stuff that triggers Assimilate, and this card does all of those things. This card is amazing. I think Assimilate's going to be very good, and I think that if there's going to be create-based or randomness to it, this is the right direction. This is the right direction. This card is so good, right? It's unpredictable, right? Yeah, it's like how kind of Priest was in Hearthstone at one point, where Priest has a lot of ways to play from your opponent's deck in hand. I am still worried about Traharn ditching cards out of your opponent's deck, and I'm actually kind of worried about Cantarella. People don't realize how annoying Cantarella is because Traharn is getting that spotlight. Cantarella plays the card out of your opponent's deck. So it's a spy, and if spies get better, Cantarella gets better, and I have a bad feeling Cantarella... I have a bad feeling that Traharn maybe gets fixed one day, and Cantarella just takes that place. Because you still could use Traharn maybe to see what was on top of the deck, or put something on top of the deck. I don't know. But I think Nilfgaard Spies actually is going to be really good. Cantarella is going to make it good, and this card's going to make it good. Moving right along. Northern Realm special card at 7 provision. Knighthood. I don't think there's a tag with this one. Split 6 boosts randomly between all units on an allied row. So it's reverse Delirium. So think about all the ways that this could matter. This matters if you have a single Trident infantry on the board. This is a 12-point play, right? Life is good. If you have a single Trident infantry on the board, what is going on? But if you have a single Trident infantry on the row, which is a bit more realistic, yeah, I mean, that's more realistic and very controllable. So you put one unit on a row or two Tridents on a row or whatever. Or you just play Portal into two Tridents and then play Knighthood. Like, is there a way to play two cards in a turn where you can actually play that combo? I can't think of one right now. Like, if you could play Portal and Knighthood at the same time, it's pretty crazy. Let's think about that. Summoning Circle? Summoning Circle. I mean, yeah, Summoning Circle pulls out one Trident, and that's all you need, right? All you need is one. Yeah, Summoning Circle. That seems fine. It might work. It might just be also just fine to play. You play Witches, you play this, you play Scythemans at 6 and 7, like you play Roach. This makes sure that all of them are boosted and probably stay boosted. Maybe you're playing Meave. And you're dropping Scythemans at 6 almost instantly after your first play. That's what I'm more excited about. But having Trident be like just another reason to run this and Trident and Scytheman, and now you have like just these great 4 provision point cards as well. Makes like the new card Sintra Knight look automatically already bad compared to the like Trident Infantry in the game was already like a very, very good 4-point card for Northern Realms. So I think this card is it might be really, really good. I think it's good in a Scytheman deck. You have to play it though. It's bad top deck if you is it a bad top deck? You only need one unit to stick. 6 for 7 at worst. Pretty high upside. A lot of stuff cares about boosts. Like a lot of these boosts, a lot of those points will double dip depending on where they land. I like this card. I just like it. Coodcoodak. Now this card, I thought originally this card was just so bad, but it's not that bad actually. It's when you think about how this card could be good for a couple of reasons. It's the reason why I thought it was bad is because I thought it was a weird card that you'd need to tech in. But the fact that only Northern Realms has it is interesting because this means that certain situations, certain metas, certain situations are better. Now, like imagine this card in Monsters. You have your Neckers just locked by Ox. You drop Coodcoodak next to it. You unlock them and they thrive. Man, that's a pretty good combo, right? But that's not a combo that can happen because this is a Northern Realms card. However, if you were to play anything that gets locked that is side by side, perhaps if Ox hits your blue stripe commando, Coodcoodak comes down and unlocks them. If a Devil's Puffball has now poisoned 2 of your units side by side and you're playing against a poison deck, Coodcoodak now clears both of the poisons on those adjacent units. Finally, if your opponent has just put a whole bunch of bleeds everywhere, Coodcoodak is likely getting a good amount of value for how much he costs, which is 6. So he feels meta dependent, but he definitely feels like, much like how it seems like certain factions might be better suited to take on other factions based on what factions are getting better usage of these new mechanics, poison, vitality, purify, shield, etc. I think that this card, in a meta where poison and bleeding are leading, if bleeding is leading, then Coodcoodak is actually a strong Northern Realms card because you're likely going to, if you clear just 3 points of bleed, you're happy to play it. But if you're unlocking important units, that's probably good too. And finally, this card. Now, this card definitely got buffed since we saw it on the stream. Oh boy. Okay. When I saw this card for the first time, I thought, I don't know. It was a 13. It was 13. We're talking about Damien de la Tour, if you guys are following along. Somehow, if you're an audio listener, but somehow still have visuals and know what we're talking about. This is Damien de la Tour. Now, when they revealed this card was drastically different, I feel like, in its power level. This is a 13 provision point card with 4 strength, or maybe even 3 strength? I can't even remember. It had the same ability, though. Order, refresh your leader's ability. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, this effect. So, he's 11 provisions. That's way better than 13. Before, he seemed like, I didn't know if I was going to get the value out of him. But now, he is 5 points on the body. That is hard to kill and easy to protect, I think. Or I should say it's hard to kill, and if it doesn't die, then you can just... And I mean, if it's locked, you could just purify it, and maybe you're playing... I don't know. So, for like if we're just looking for value, assuming this card more often than not lives, and if you're playing it, it probably does. This card is going to be very strong because John Calvert is a leader. Emir is also a leader with a one-use ability that's good, and I'm not really sure how this works with Morvran. Does it recharge one charge, or does it recharge all of the charges? But what is clear is that Usurper doesn't play this card. This also could suggest that the Nilfgaard leader will be a strong leader to use this card with. Another Nilfgaard leader with a single use, which would be interesting because it means that I would think that they would get a multi-use leader because they already have 3 single-use leaders. Because Ardal is also a single. This is also good with Ardal. Sorry, I forgot about Ardal complete. This is an excellent Ardal card. So they already have 3 single-use leaders. I would think maybe they would not get into single-use leader, but they might. When I see this card, I think they might. This card is scary because this card has really high potential, but it also seems like it is going to be a build around. So even with its high potential, this card probably won't see play in every Nilfgaard deck. Like, this isn't going to be an auto-include by any means, but it's going to be common enough that you're going to have to think about it a little bit. And I like that. I'm only worried that he's too strong now. When I saw him before, I was definitely worried that he was too weak. But now I'm worried he's too strong. But yeah, I think this card is very good. This card makes a promise. We want to bring really exciting shit back to Gwent, like old Kahir. Ooh, now we got some of this. These are some spicy ones. Damien was pretty spicy, but this one has some people talking. This card is, you know, if you believe in the concept that every card game knows when they are designing just a good card that's probably like a little bit above curve, and it's just going to be really, really good. So, like, a good example is kind of like the Doom Whisperer from the most recent Magic the Gathering expansion. It's a 5-mana card. It's like a 5/5 fly. It has a whole bunch of crazy effects plus a really strong body that you can use right away that helps fix your deck. You don't need to know how to play Magic to understand that it was a card that you could play early enough that its effect was very threatening, and if you could get it out any earlier, it was extremely threatening, and even if it got killed, it had a lot of abilities to help you when you played it. So Sigvald is a card that, the reason why this card is so good is that it's an engine at 6 that costs you 8 to play. That is very well priced. I would say any card worth removing that scares you is not at 6. In fact, one would argue that Morvran sees play in Nilfgaard specifically because he can create units like the Unicorn and Chironex at 6, and they are super, super hard to remove, and thus always get their value reliably one way or another, unless they have like a really specific counter. So things at 6, I think that we have an environment that things at 6 are very strong cards. So that's just the face. Then there's more. This card has more. The more of this card is, yeah, it has to be played on melee to hit the whole board. Sure. And if you know that this card is going to come down on melee, you can plan for it. Okay. But if you actually damage this unit and don't kill it, it's going to come at you even stronger than before. Plus, there are other cards that are going to maybe damage this unit in advance. Just imagine this card with Joanna on the board, and you have Knut the Callous in hand. And I have to show Knut the Callous now immediately after this because these cards work together. So this is Nut the Callous, assuming the K is silent. But you know, I'm always going to call him Knuts. So this is a 9 provision point, 6-point card, which is also a pretty good card. That is kind of like a halfway Cyclops. Flake said it's like he tears you in half like a phone book and throws half of you at your opponent. So this damages a unit by half and then deals that damage to the opponent. So you kind of still get that 6-point value. Plus you trigger the berserk effect. So imagine that happening to Sigvald. Awesome. Now Sigvald's pinging for 2. Oh, but Joanna's on the board. Joanna just procced because something just got damaged. And now Joanna is going to start healing Sigvald back up again. So you can't just ping him for 3 and finish him off. And if you can't ping him for 4 or whatever, then he's going to... Or you could shield him at 3. I don't know. What I will say is, though, remember, you can lock the card. Don't worry too much about it. Just lock him. And any card that demands removal is good because it demands removal because it's good, right? It's threatening. It's very, very scary. And they moved Alvalok from 6 to 5. But I think that we might see maybe Geralt Professional is in the meta. Just kill it. right? Just kill it. I don't think he's overpowered, but I think he's clearly one of the best Skellige cards. Like, I will never argue that this is one of the best Skellige cards, if not the best card that Skellige gets in the entire expansion. It's quite possible. But I'm not going to say it's overpowered because you can just lock it, right? Just lock it. Does Berserk stay if it goes back over half? I don't think so. I don't think it would. It seems like it's a condition, and if the dominance condition carries, this one would too. So yeah, talking about, and I kind of already just talked about Not the Callous here as well, and how he's a 9 provision, 0.6 strength card that damages an allied unit to the right by half of its power, and then damages an enemy unit by that amount of power. So Sigvald, obviously, you can use this with it, but you can use this with any Berserk card because he automatically meets the Berserk conditions for that card. Plus, he can damage anything that's next to a Protector or Urana, plus anything that cares about being damaged or having something next to something that's damaged, or Blue Boy Lugos, who cares when he's damaged. Also, you can just damage one of Harold's skulls, you ping for 1, and you get the 2 ping. So that's actually a really good combo, too. This card's probably also really good, right? This card's also pretty good. The Herald interaction I just thought of right now seems like pretty awesome. Skellige got these 2 cards are like defining cards for Skellige. Oh yeah, these are warriors, right? Oh, Est is definitely alive. If they're warriors, yeah, those cards are excellent. Those make Est playable straight up. We're talking about Waters of Broccolon. This is a 9 provision point Scoia'tael special card, and I feel like I have to make the assumption that this is a nature card, which matters for another card that they show. So let's assume this is a nature card. So spawn and summon a Dryad Fledgling. Now we've seen this also revealed. A Dryad Fledgling is a 4 provision point, 3 strength Dryad with Harmony. That's it, just an engine. If you control a Dryad when you play this card, spawn and summon 2 Dryad Fledglings to the allied row instead. So if you have a Dryad on board, this is a 9-point card that creates 2 engines on the board. That seems okay. If only there was a card that made this better. Well, there is. It's Fauve. So let's talk about Fauve as well. Fauve is a 9 provision point, 2 strength Dryad that plays a nature card from your deck. So if we are assuming that Waters of Broccolon is a nature card, and I feel like I have no reason not to assume that, that means you play Fauve to play Waters of Broccolon. You have a Waters of Broccolon, which means you have a Dryad on the board, which means you just played a 2-point Dryad and 2 3-point Dryad engines. And when we get to the Dryad that cares about how many Dryads are on the board, you'll think, damn, this seems pretty damn good for a Dryad deck, but also pretty damn good for a Harmony deck, also with Fins. I mean, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Sigvald and Knut are on Warriors because the tags are on stream. Yeah, Est is really good at those cards. And I don't really think the other leaders get as much value as Est gets out of it. So, Est do. So, Est, at least, is getting some support. Like Croc and Bran, I don't think get a lot of support. Alniolf, I think, is going to get middling support. Est looks like he's going to get support. And the new leader must care about self-wound in some way or damaged units. So we can assume that the new leader and Est are getting like the most support, which are the leaders that needed it the most. Hello. That's what we wanted. All right. That's it for the Gwent Open reveals. So now let's talk about reveals that have happened since Gwent Open has finished. That's where we're at 2 hours into the podcast.